Hello my dear students, welcome back to my channel. In this session, we will be continuing with the last topic which we have done. In these sessions, I started with the 12th class biology portion, starting with sexual reproduction in plants. In my last video, we discussed about the introduction part of the chapter. Now, I will start with the next topic of the chapter, that is pre-fertilization events and structures. So in this topic, we will discuss about what is stamen, microsporangium and the pollen grain, structure of pollen grain, development of pollen grain. So all this we are going to discuss in this topic. This I am going to divide into two videos. In my first video, now I am discussing about structure of stamen and structure of microsporangium. And in my next video, I'll discuss about microsporogenesis, formation of pollen grains, structure of pollen grain, and development of male gametophyte. You know, pollen grain is called as a male gametophyte. So, development of male gametophyte. And about the pollen grains. What are the uses of pollen grains or any harmful effects? So, this we will divide into two videos. So, now let us start with what is a stamen and structure of stamen. Stamens are called as microsporophylls, and these are the male reproductive structures, and group of stamens we call it as androecium. Androecium indicates the group of stamens and they form the third node of the thalamus. Sterile stamens are also present in some plants. Those are called as staminodes. Like for example in Kenna, they are called as a staminodes. So here sterile stamens are formed from petals, petaloid stamens they are also called. We have another example here, like for example in Cassia also. Cassia belonging to family Cisalpinaceae, we find here sterile stamens, or they are called as staminodes. Staminodes are those which do not produce any pollen grains. They cannot produce pollen grains. Now let us see what is the structure of a stamen. A stamen consists of two parts. The stalk-like portion that is called as a filament, and the upper portion is called as anther. So it has two parts, filament and anther. And two anther lobes are present in an anther, which are connected by a sterile tissue called as connective. So typically an anther has three parts: filament, anther and connective. These are the three parts of a stamen: filament, anther and connective. Now let us go through the second diagram which I have given. So here this is the transverse section of an anther, dithecous anther. This we are going to see shortly. What is a dithecous anther? Here we find pollen sacs. I have shown in the diagram. Pollen sacs, these structures, these are two pollen sacs on both the sides, and this is the line of dehiscence, where actually the anther, dehiscence is the breaking of anther to liberate pollen grains, that is called as dehiscence. Along this line dehiscence take place, and this is the connective. Connective is the sterile tissue connecting the two anther lobes, and this is called as a filament or stalk of the anther. This is called as a filament. Filament, or it is called as a stalk of the anther. Okay, now let us go through the other aspects. We will see the other aspects. A stamen consists of filament, stalk, anther, just now which I was describing. Anther is a fertile part at the tip of the filament, and anther consists of anther lobes. And based on the anther lobes, stamens are categorized into two types. First, let us see what is a dithecous anther. In a dithecous anther, we find there are two anther lobes are present, and each anther lobe has two pollen sacs or two microsporangium. There are two anther lobes in a dithecous anther, like beside I have shown here in the diagram. This is the connective, the central portion, this is called as a connective, On both the sides we find two anther lobes, and each anther lobe we have microsporangia or the pollen sac. So every anther lobe has two pollen sacs. So if there are two anther lobes, it is called as a dithecous anther. So young dithecous anther, if we observe young dithecous anther, here we find there are two anther lobes present. That is, it is called as a bilobed anther. And four microsporangia or pollen sacs are present. So it is called as a tetrasporangiate because there are four microsporangia present. Now in a mature dithecous anther, two anther lobes are present, bilobed, but it has only two microsporangia. So bisporangiate. Why two microsporangia? If you just again observe the diagram, the structure which is separating the two microsporangia, this degenerates during maturity. At the time of maturity, the structure which I have labeled as stomium, this degenerates and the two pollen sacs will merge with each other. So at maturity, one anther lobe will have only one pollen sac. So it becomes bisporangiate, bilobed and bisporangiate. That is the mature dithecous anther. Young dithecous anther, how do we describe? Bilobed and tetrasporangiate. Young dithecous anther we described as bilobed and tetrasporangiate. Mature dithecous anther we described as bilobe and bisporangiate. So dithecous anther we find in most of the angiosperms. Majority of angiosperms, like example we can take, majority of angiosperms we find dithecous anther. So I hope this is clear, the nomenclature of what is dithecous. So two anther lobes, theca, anther lobe is theca, so we call dithecous. Microsporangia present in each anther lobe. There are two microsporangia. So if there are two anther lobes, four microsporangia are present in a young dithecous anther. So it is called tetrasporangiate, and if it is a mature anther, it is called as a bisporangiate, bilobed and bisporangiate. Now let us understand what is a monothecous anther. Monothecous anther means there is one anther lobe present. One anther lobe is with two microsporangia present. So young monothecous anther will be unilobed. It has only one anther lobe, and it is bisporangiate because there are two microsporangia present. The same thing in mature anther, if we say, same, it is one lobed, unilobed, and it becomes unisporangiate because the two sporangia present will merge with each other. I have shown it in the diagram here. This is a diagram for monothecous anther having two microsporangia. So at maturity, the two microsporangia will merge with each other, and then it forms only a single microsporangia. Example in case of Malvaceae member, we find in Malvaceae family, which is a dicot family, we find monothecous. Normally we find only dithecous anthers. Now, how these microsporangia are present? Microsporangia or pollen sacs in any anther lobe are present longitudinally all through the length of the anther. So if we observe an anther lobe all through the length, suppose this is what we have done in a diagram. So suppose we find an anther lobe, this side. Similarly on the other side we find another anther lobe connected by connective, and you know this is a stalk. So all along the length of the anther lobe, if we see longitudinally, each anther lobe should have two microsporangia. So these are, suppose this is present here, all along the length it is going to be present. Longitudinally it is going to extend. So in this way two are present longitudinally extending. That is the position of microsporangia, and they are packed with pollen grains. They consist of many pollen grains, and pollen grains are produced in large quantities in pollen sacs. So finally, the purpose of anther is formation of pollen grains. So many pollen grains are formed, and after they are formed, the anther breaks open and liberates all the pollen grains. That is called as a dehiscence. And then pollen grain reaches the right stigma, that is called as a pollination. Okay, now let us see structure of each microsporangium. If it is a young Dichithecus anther, we have 4 microsporangia. We have already seen it diagrammatically. Now here in this diagram I have shown single microsporangium and what is the structure. So in a typical microsporangium, if we take transverse section TS, it appears near circular in outline and it has 2 parts, anther wall and sporogenous tissue. There are 2 parts present in microsporangium, anther wall and sporogenous tissue. Anther wall, if we see the anther wall, it consists of 4 layers. From outside to inside, if we list out, outermost is epidermis, then endothecium, then middle layers and tapetum. First 3 layers are protective in function. First 3 layers, epidermis, endothecium, middle layer. They are protective in function, and the 4th layer, that is tapetum, it is nutritive in function. It provides nutrition. So all 4 layers together form the anther wall, and inside, these are the anther wall which I have shown. Inside the anther wall we find this is a sporogenous tissue. So diagram, if you try to understand, outermost epidermis, and then you have endothecium. Second layer is called endothecium, and then middle layers, and then single layer of tapetum is present. Inside the tapetum we find sporogenous tissue. Now let us try to understand one by one. First, epidermis. So epidermis forms the outermost layer. It is single layer, single celled thick layer, that is, it is made up of only single layer of cells, and it is protective in function. And epidermis is continuous for all 4 pollen sacs. If we observe all 4 pollen sacs, this diagram already I have given you in the last previous description. So here if we observe, these are the 4. Epidermis will be present continuously for all the 4 pollen sacs, and it is protective in function. Now let us see the second layer called endothecium. Endothecium also is single layered and is present below the epidermis. It is present below epidermis, and this is also a single layer. And during maturation, the cells are radially elongated and forms fibrous thickenings made up of cellulose, that is alpha cellulose. The epidermal cells, endothelial cells, are modified in such a way that they form fiber-like structures made up of cellulose. This is how we have shown diagrammatically. If this is a cell of endothecium, fibrous thickenings are present. This is what we have shown it diagrammatically. Fibrous thickenings. And callose bands are also present along radial walls. Callose is a type of carbohydrate. This is a radial wall. So it shows the deposition of callose also. Along with that, very little amount of pectin and lignin also are present. So cellulose is present in large amount, callose is present on radial walls, and very little amount of pectin and lignin also is present. And the most important thing, in between these, few cells are without the thickening called stomium. So the cells which are present between the 2 pollen sacs, endothecium also is present. I'll take another paper and I'll try to explain it to you. So if we observe endothelial cells, so I'll draw the here again and I'll try to make it more clear to you. So suppose this is a transverse section of the anther. Epidermis we have seen it is continuous throughout all the 4 pollen sacs. Next layer will be, after epidermis, next layer will be endothecium. Endothecium also will form a continuous layer throughout all 4 pollen sacs. And the cells of endothecium between the 2 pollen sacs, suppose these are the 2 pollen sacs, and between the 2 pollen sacs, these cells of endothecium, they become very thin walled. That means they do not show any fibrous thickenings. Between these 2 pollen sacs, the endothelial cells become thin walled, that is without fibrous thickenings. They are only thin walled. So these cells, they form the structure called stomium. So stomium is a part of endothecium present between the 2 pollen sacs. So if it is a dithecous anther, we have 2 stomia present. 2 stomia. Each anther lobe will have 1 stomium. So there are 2 anther lobes, so therefore 2 stomia are present. Stomium helps in dehiscence. At the point of stomium, the anther breaks open to liberate the pollen grains. They are thin-walled cells, and because of fibrous thickenings, they are hygroscopic also. Endothelial cells are hygroscopic. That means they can absorb or lose water. When they lose water, the cells become very dry and they start breaking. Breaking takes place at the point of stomium. So at this point, anther breaks, and anther wall breaks at maturity and releases all the pollen grains. That is the function of stomium, which is a part of endothecium. Okay. Now let us see what are the other structures. The next layer are called as middle layers. Middle layers are 1 to 5 layers are present, and they are parenchymatous in nature, and they are ephemeral and they are absent in mature anther. They degenerate to provide nourishment to growing microspore mother cells. So they are ephemeral in nature. They degenerate very soon and they provide nutrition. So immediately inside endothecium, about 1 to 4 layers of middle layers, 1 to 4 layers. So even middle layers also, suppose this is a middle layer. Middle layers also we find they are, these middle layers also continuous throughout all the 4 pollen sacs, just like endothecium. So epidermis, endothecium, middle layers. All the 3 layers are present continuously for all the 4 pollen sacs. Middle layers are 1 to 5 and they are ephemeral in nature and they provide nutrition to the growing microspore mother cells. That is the function of middle layers. Now let us see the innermost layer of anther wall. The innermost layer of anther wall is called as tapetum. Tapetum forms the innermost layer of anther wall, and the function of tapetum is it is nutritive in function. It provides nutrition. Cells are initially diploid and with 2 nuclei present, and they have dense cytoplasm and later become polyploid and multinucleate due to endomitosis and free nuclear division. Mitosis takes place without the separation of nuclei. That means without cytokinesis. Only nuclear division will occur without cytokinesis. So they become multinucleate and they also become polyploid in nature. And they are with dense cytoplasm. All these structural changes take place in tapetum in order to provide nutrition. The main function of tapetum is to provide nutrition to the growing spore mother cells. So inside tapetum we find spore mother cells. So to the growing spore mother cells. So let me show it here once again diagrammatically. This tapetum is present separately for each pollen sac. This is the tapetum for one pollen sac. This is for another. So for each pollen sac we find the tapetum separately. We find it separately. So what we find? So what is the tapetum? Just now what we discussed, tapetum, it is the nutritive layer which is initially the cells are diploid and later the cells become polyploid. So initial cells of tapetum, if we observe the initial cells of tapetum, for convenience I am showing it for one. The cells will be initially, and if we observe the tapetum, which I am going to draw it, I will enlarge the diagram and draw it. So here we find binucleate initially. The cells are binucleate and later they become multinucleate due to endomitosis and free nuclear division. Another feature we find is the tapetum is present separately for each pollen sac. It is not continuous like the other three layers. It is present separately for each pollen sac. That is the structural feature of a tapetum. Now let us see what are all the other features of tapetum. It absorbs nutrition from middle layers and it provides to microspore mother cells. That is the main function. Absorbs nutrition from middle layers and provides to microspore mother cell. And it disappears in a mature anther. Now let us see types of tapetum. There are two types. Amoeboid type, which is also called as periplasmodial tapetum. It is found in primitive angiosperms and absorbs all food from middle layers and provides nutrition to developing microspore mother cell after degeneration. That means in amoeboid tapetum, the cells will degenerate, tapetal cells will degenerate to provide nutrition to the sporogenous tissue. It is called amoeboid. It is called as amoeboid. Example like for example Typha and Elisma. This is not very common. It is found in some primitive angiosperms only. Now the second type is called as glandular or secretory tapetum. It is advanced type. Here the cells do not degenerate. They absorb nutrition from middle layers and secretes into the cavity of microsporangium. The cells degenerate only after they complete their function. So they do not degenerate and provide the nutrition. Instead, they secrete the nutrition into the cavity of microsporangium. Like for example in Capsella. It is found in most of the flowering plants. One example is taken Capsella. Capsella is commonly also called as shepherd's purse. It is commonly also called shepherd's purse. And after tapetum provides nutrition to sporogenous tissue, then it starts degenerating. But before tapetum degenerates, a special granules called as proubisque granules or proubisque bodies are formed, which are surrounded by sporopollenin. So this is very, very important point. Before actually tapetum degenerates, what happens? A special granules are formed inside the tapetum and these are called as proubisque bodies. These proubisque bodies will also be surrounded by sporopollenin and now they are called as eubisque bodies. You know, sporopollenin is found in the exine of pollen grain, outer layer of the pollen grain. So therefore, these eubisque bodies later help in the structure of pollen grain, formation of pollen grain. And at last, when tapetum degenerates, eubisque bodies are released into the pollen sac. That is how the tapetum helps in different ways. Now let us see what are all different ways the tapetum can help. Now let us list down the functions of tapetum. First and foremost function, tapetum provides nutrition to microspore mother cell. That is the most important function, primary function. Then secretion of sporopollenin, which later forms exine of the pollen grain. Exine is the outer layer of the pollen grain. Exine of the pollen grain. Then the next function, formation of Eubisque bodies, just like what we have just discussed. Formation of Eubisque bodies will later form exine. Secretion of enzymes and hormones, and also formation of pollen kit. So what is this pollen kit? We are just going to see. These are all functions of tapetum. Now what is the pollen kit? It is outermost thick and sticky coating of the pollen grain composed of lipids and carotenoids. Outermost oily, thick and sticky coating of pollen grain. What is its composition? It is made up of lipids and carotenoids. This is very, very important, children. Some terms which I am discussing, these are little out of NCERT also, but these are very, very important for any entrance exam you are going to write. So you have to follow the video carefully from the beginning till the end. Now another important feature, what is pollen kit? First thing I have given you the composition. What is it? It is an oily, thick layer and sticky layer coating of the pollen grain. It is present outside the pollen grain. It is composed of lipids and carotenoids, and it is generally present in pollen of entomophilous flowers. What are entomophilous flowers? They are the flowers pollinated by insects. So insect pollinated flowers, because the pollen grains are sticky, they stick to the body of the insect, and thus the pollen grains are dispersed from one flower to the other flower. Next, so this is what we have done up to the structure of function of anther wall. We have discussed about 4 layers of anther wall. Now the most important part of the anther, inner to the tapetum. Inner to the tapetum, what do we find? It is called as a sporogenous tissue. Inner. So this innermost part, this is called as a sporogenous tissue, which is the most important part of the anther, that is fertile part of the anther. It is the fertile part of the anther, because this sporogenous tissue helps in formation of pollen grains. So sporogenous tissue is separately surrounded by tapetum layer. So it consists of spore mother cells and form spores. And all the layers of anther wall except tapetum are present continuously for all 4 pollen sacs. That's what I have just mentioned. And tapetum is the only layer which is present separately for each pollen sac. So this is what we have done about the structure of the pollen grain, structure of the anther wall. So I hope it is clear, children. So in my next session I'll start with the next part, that is after this we have to start with microsporogenesis. That is how pollen grains and microspores are formed, and here I am going to also discuss about some exceptions and some extra examples, and then we will do about the structure of pollen grains and also development of male gametophyte. So here I conclude my video, and please subscribe my channel. It will be very, very useful to you, so that, and continuation will be there. So continuously you have to watch the video right from the beginning to end, and all the videos, because the videos are in continuation of one topic to the other topic. So you have to watch it continuously to have a thorough understanding of the complete topic. So I conclude my video here, children. Thank you very much. Have a good day.